Okay, hi everybody. This is Battle Reaction, the companion show to our Boss Battles initial battle, and today I have with me back again my friend, acrobat entrepreneur Julia. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, happy to be here. Always love coming back on the show.
Yeah, it is so good to see you. Okay, so we're going to get into the clips in a second. This battle occurred for anyone who, if you haven't watched the initial battle, great. If you have watched it, great. This will be highlights. And so it's the battle against Glassstaff, which is kind of the second level adventure in the Fandalen and Below, Lost Mines of Fandalen adventure. The leader of the Red Brands, Glassstaff, and then some of his minions. In this first clip, we're looking at the party fighting two of the bugbears that are there before they move on to Glassstaff. Okay, we'll just transition over and take a look.
Right on. Jonah's going to go ahead and attempt a shove on B here,
You got it.
B's at the
trying
bottom.
to set him back 10 feet straight through both of those doors. That's going to be a DC 13.
Strength save, correct?
Strength or Dex, he can choose.
He will fail. So you push
So
him
yeah,
back
he's
5 feet.
10 feet. Yes.
Okay.
Let me double check that, but
It's 5. He says it's 10, but it's
yeah,
5.
10 feet for that.
Yeah. So as you really put all your weight into this, as the bugbear is towering over you, you're able to get him off balance and stumbles back through both open doors.
Cool. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and use my bonus action to disengage, and then come block this door off here.
Okay. So like you're doing like a disengage as a bonus action, free action, just sort of closing that door and huddling
Yep,
in. Cool.
that's it.
Okay. So that was the end of clip one. I chose that because I think it demonstrated some interesting battlefield control choices by the character Jonah, who's a monk, and so he pushes the bugbear through the door. The when he says it's actually 10 feet, it should be 5 feet, but it didn't really matter too much in this case. But it's the choice to move the bugbear out of the room to, I guess, concentrate their efforts on Bugbear A versus like I'm gonna attack that second Bugbear. So I thought it was a good move. I'm always kind of torn between like should you just like put fists on the monster, attack them, or do something else. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like it's a really difficult balance to strike between battlefield control and, as you said, just like getting fists on, getting after the damage. And I think a lot of players choose to just do damage. And sometimes in a scenario like this, a little bit of battlefield control really can help you like triage which monsters you go after first. And I think that can be really cool and often overlooked. But also, if it fails, players often feel bad about trying a maneuver that didn't work out. So I think that is a very delicate balance to kind of figure out.
Yeah, I did like that in the end after he pushes the monster out of the door. So his character then um, moves just one step and like leans up against the door and then prevents like it makes the monster take its action to try and bash through the door, and so that's kind of robbing a monster of its turn, which was a clever move.
Yeah, I think it was a really clever move, especially in an environment like this with doors and other objects that you can use to your advantage. I think it's a
Yeah,
really smart play.
right. Okay, so the next clip we'll take a look at kind of just happens right after this, and it's kind of a humorous moment. And all right, let's go back and take a look.
How are you blocking this door so this beast doesn't get in?
Uh, I have my hand on it, but more importantly, I have my foot kind of just jammed under the bottom a little bit. That's the
Mm-hmm.
real like clincher there that, you know, I'm trying to hang out really, really cool. Just like, no, man, just wait. We're doing something in here.
All right.
I think it was that. I think it was that line. We're doing something in here that that was a payoff for me. Just as if like, um, you know, the bugbear was kind of invited to the party, but you know, we'll get to you in a second. And so my question about this was that I think Rob kind of put it to him like describe that, and I think sometimes you get really good stuff like this is a really humorous moment, and sometimes you don't, and I think it really depends on the player. Uh, some people may not want to get into it. I don't know. How do you do it in your games? When do you decide to ask for a little bit more in terms of description? I don't know. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely a lot in learning to read your players and your table and kind of, especially if you have a session zero, getting people's expectations in terms of role play, I think helps a lot. There'll be people who are fans of like live play channels like Critical Role or others that are really looking for something like that. And there are other people that are here just to like hang out, shoot some monsters, like, do some damage, roll some dice kind of people. And I
Yeah.
think figuring out which people your players are early and figuring out how to give them what they're looking for is like the best way to kind of do that. I'm definitely a heavier role play person myself, so I tend to curate my table towards people who also want that sort of experience. And I think that helps a lot. Like over time as a DM, I think curating a table of players that match your play style ultimately ends up being the most rewarding.
Yeah, that's good advice. I suppose thinking about myself is that my tendency is really to be an introvert, but I find that this niche of Dungeons and Dragons is like I don't know something. I'm just like I'm okay to just be silly here, and I can probably benefit from being drawn out a little bit because then I do okay at it. Okay. I know some of the interesting thoughts about role play. All right. Let's take a brief second and then we'll move on to our next clip. All right. Okay. I'm just briefly kind of looking at my own notes about it. What this is coming up. Oh yeah, it's the hiding during combat and
Oh, yes.
okay. And I'll probably have to change the screen, but that's fine. All right.
Okay.
Back. There we go.
That I'm going to advance up behind Tobin, and with the two open doors, I'm going to take a shot at the bugbear directly in front of the open doors with my short bow.
Okay.
As a 14 to hit, 9 plus 5.
A 14 misses.
Shame. That as a bonus action, I will take the hide action.
Where are you hiding?
There's a table right here.
Okay. So you're gonna just sort of like duck behind the table.
Yep.
All right, so a little closer, zoom in on the scene, and I guess what made me think about this is when Tobin, he's the rogue, goes, I'm gonna hide. Rob goes, where are you hiding? And I had that thought too, like where are you hiding? So there's a clarification, I guess, on hiding in the 2024 rules that talks about breaking line of sight. But I think that there is still some ambiguity there in terms of does breaking line of sight mean that you're hidden, or do you have to break line of sight and then conceivably your character can like hide behind something? And I put it to a couple of my favorite Discord sites, and there's not agreement here, right? As it might be expected. Intuitively, to me, it seems like if you just duck behind a table, like the monster's going to know that you're behind the table, and I think that was the case in the old rules as well. And so to me, it kind of makes sense that no, you got to like once you're out of sight, then maybe you can hide somewhere. I think the other side of that is that thieves want to hide, and you don't want to like stop people having fun doing DV things. So that's the conundrum. What do you think?
I will say, first off, full disclosure, I played a thief rogue for several years that fully took advantage of as soon as you were out of sight behind a column, I was hidden and thus would sneak attack on the next turn immediately.
Right.
So I am very biased in thinking that that is absolutely how it should work. Realistically, do I think that's fair? Probably not. But also, as a rogue, there's something so much fun about picking up a handful of d6s and rolling your sneak
Yeah.
attack that I was a fan of it every single time. I think 1D&D is pushing D&D to be more realistic, which I think we'll talk about in another clip as well. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. And I think in this scene, Tobin easily could have hidden along any part of that wall, and it
Yeah.
also would have been great. And so I think like figuring out how you're ruling that as a table becomes more important than like one sweeping
Yeah.
judgment. I see both sides of it, and I don't like have one. This is exactly where I land, or this is exactly where I land on.
Yeah, I don't think there is. I mean, like clearly there was a lot of like experienced players who, were like in agreement that people disagreed about this thing. Sometimes you get like people just like no, but it wasn't that way. People were like, yeah, like you could interpret it different ways. And so, yeah, you're right. You need to have that discussion ahead of time. And I think Rob just kind of went with it. It didn't really matter in this case. Like the bugbear didn't rush in and wasn't looking for somebody to hit. There was a more obvious target in front. And so it didn't matter so much. The rogue Tobin had a lot of different ways and did a really good job of creating advantage. Which incidentally, that was one of the things that in some of the commentary on rogues in the new rules were that in that they didn't get buffed up, they were maybe left behind a little bit. But I think that the battle mastery properties, the Vex property, which gives them another way to get advantage, at least in this adventure, really aided the rogue, and ultimately the rogue was the biggest damage dealer of the party, which you may not have expected when you have a paladin and then these new buffed up monks, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great point in talking about party balance and like how your character plays in a party, where in some cases like it may make more sense to come down on the side of like being more realistic with your hiding rules. And I think that sometimes that makes a lot of sense. And sometimes either the party just didn't end up with as much damage capabilities, and so like maybe they're all sorcerers or something else. And so then you might want your rogue to be a little bit more powerful.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the answer almost always in D&D, but life in general is just like it depends. It's there's not a good blanket rule. It's about the particular cases. Okay, all right. I think we talked that one out. Let's move on.
All right. I am going to walk up to Adam and I'm going to spend 5 points of my lay on hands to heal him for 5 hit points and pick him back up. Let's see here. So out of my total of 10, that's half of it. And Zoth reaches down with a healing hand and says, "Oh, you haven't reached your destiny yet, my dude." And he just like kind of hoists him up. Can I like yank him up with the same action since I'm like physically touching him, or?
I'm going to say no, partly because in the new rules, the Paladin Lay on Hands is a bonus action. So you're not actually using your action.
Oh, wow.
You're using your bonus action.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
Change.
Adam, you're awake.
Quatsu, dudes.
Quatsu! And then
Quatsu?
and then Zoth, so let's see. Zoth is then going to 10, 15. He's gonna just like head over here and I'm gonna grapple the bugbear here.
You got it.
What do you want me to do there? An athletics check?
No, so the way that the rules are working, they're a little bit different now. So it's actually going to be a
Mhm.
saving throw.
Oh, okay.
The DC is equal to your strength, 8 plus your strength and your proficiency bonus. So proficiency bonus at 2, and what's your strength
Mhm.
modifier?
+2, so 12.
So 12.
Mhm.
And then Bugbear is going to make a strength save for that, and it's going to be a 19. So as you try to, just takes you like backs you off, and realizes now that he's now cornered.
Yeah, and I'm then gonna say, why don't you pick on somebody your own size, little man? And then just gonna like puff out my chest and kind of clap my shield and my warhammer together.
Maybe I will.
I think there was a lot going on in that clip. When there's some really kind of good role play. I never saw that movie when I was a kid, Surf Ninjas, which this team they based all their characters off of. So like that's the Quatsu, and the South is like the Paladin of Destiny. And I did like how the group had a unified role play, and they they were funny, and they were cracking themselves up, which is great. Like you want to see that. But so initially the play is just the paladin is going to heal somebody with lay on hands, and then realizes like, oh, it's a bonus action, I can do something else, and he decides to grapple. So a couple of cool things, right? The new lay on hands bonus action, which is huge, and then the decision to grapple. So let's talk about the grappling first. Grappling has changed a little bit in that now it's this saving throw versus an opposed check of strength, and it's a little more powerful in that once you have somebody grappled, that creature that is grappled has disadvantage on attacking other people than the grappler, whereas previously it was just like they can't move. So there's the grapple got nerfed a little bit in that it's the saving throw which has a lower average to it, but improved a little bit in that it once grappled, the creature has disadvantage. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
I think overall, I think it's a good move. I think is where I'll stake my flag for now. I think it makes it more realistic of play, where you have characters that are typically stronger having that higher DC for like monsters or NPCs to hit against compared to a weaker character. So you don't get that weak character with a -2 to strength somehow miraculously being able to grapple a dragon.
Right.
However, if your players like that chaos and like that kind of energy, I think this rule could not be for you, and maybe is something worth playing around. I also think that at times this could lead to almost a feeling of lack of agency from a player if only the NPC is rolling. I think that almost kind of showed up in this clip a little bit, where Rob just said this is the DC based on your factors and Bugbear's going to roll kind of thing.
Right.
But I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's interesting in that. So the new Dungeon Master's Guide also kind of puts this out as like for any check, they're like, well, you could do an opposed check, but you could also do a saving throw that is based on 8 plus your proficiency modifier plus your ability bonus. And so it just kind of gives that, if you could do it either way. And so I guess it's leaving it up to the dungeon master to decide. Do you want it a little bit more realistic, but maybe harder to complete, or do you want it? Do you want the dice to be kind of swingy? There's those two choices. I think that it's what has become clear to me in thinking about it is that there's not one way that is like clearly better, right? It's just a preference choice, and like most of the time, you're not going to notice. Like if you're a new player, you're not going to notice.
Yeah. As we were discussing this actually reminded me of passive wisdom a lot, which I think is something that gets overlooked a lot in 5e. as another like way to determine which way you're going to use it. Like if your character maybe or an NPC isn't actively focusing on whatever the task is, maybe you go for the passive check. And if it's something else, maybe you consider doing contested rolls.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's another way to look at it, right? It's another, it's another tool in the toolbox. If you're a DM, you can decide to do it one way or the other. Maybe they made it a little bit harder with the grapple now since the grapple is more powerful. And then if you have if you get the grappler feat, in addition, like it's even more powerful because then you, as the grappler, have advantage on attacking that monster. So grappling kind of. I'm interested to see because I know we've got in some upcoming battles a couple of players that are interested in doing some major grappling, and so I'm interested to see what that looks like. Another thing I think about this play that was good in terms of like grappling was that they weren't having a lot of luck hitting these bugbears, right? And so if you've got a creature that has got an armor class that is maybe you're not hitting, try something else. And so something that has a saving throw, that's a different mechanism to get to a creature. And so that was also, I think, like a smart thing to do. It didn't work out, but.
Yeah, I agree. I think we don't see enough players, at least in my experience, I haven't seen enough players really capitalize on a grappler as an archetype to build their character around. And so maybe with the more buffed grappling rules, we're going to start seeing some more. And I think that could be cool too.
Oh, yeah, right. We're going to see it. Maybe this is a weird bunch, but I know from like, I've heard stories of grapplers. Like I haven't seen them in effect, but I've heard like there's grapplers here. Okay, all right. So I think that's that clip, and then let's move on.
It's going to be 18
That hits.
for a total of 16 damage.
I'm down.
Okay. Bugbears are up. A is going to take a swing at Jonah. Let's take a look. It's going to be, it's at advantage because you're paralyzed.
Yep.
So 19 to hit,
Yep.
and it's going to be crit damage.
Thought so.
It's going to be 18 points of damage.
Jonah's down.
Okay.
All right. So
Next bugbear is going to come in and try to burst the door again, and is able to.
if you haven't guessed, it's
He's going to take a swing at Adam.
death montage.
First one he sees.
All right.
16 to hit.
Yeah, that'll hit me. Even with shield.
Okay. It's going to be 15 points of slashing damage.
I had 5 hit points, so down.
All right. And then for Tobin, that's going to be a 21,
Yeah, that'll do it.
and that's going to be for 7 points of lightning damage.
Yeah, Tobin goes down, guys.
Okay.
Here we go.
Tobin, you're up. Adam, you're on deck.
All right, not going to take aim with my short bow and fire off a shot at Bugbear B.
Go for it.
Misses. That is a 13 to hit.
Again, the bigger they are, the harder they are to hit, apparently.
Destiny of the Dice is not with us today, guys.
Okay, so I kind of just mashed up a bunch of characters going down to emphasize that that this was a tough battle. If you interestingly enough, like they kept on getting back up, partially because of the paladin, who's able now with bonus action to spam out these 1 hit point healing lay on hands and get people back into the battle. Although also there's some other characters that had selected healing stuff, and so there was a share of people like helping each other out, and there was good teamwork there. So that was one aspect. I don't think they really could have survived this if it wasn't for the paladin with the lay on hands multiple times. But I think this clip these clips bring out a couple of things. One, that the party had a hard time, and then 2, they really felt that the dice were against them. And I brought up this statistic briefly in when we at the end of our initial battle, is that I went through all the D20 rolls for the party, and they precisely averaged out to 10.5, which is exactly like the average roll. And so the dice were in fact not against them. They were just like, they were not for them, but they were not against them. And then so that raised a question to me, like, the party did have a hard time with this battle. Why was that? And then, so I went through and checked the CR rating against the new DMG rules, and that was like exactly right. So the balance was supposed to be right. The dice were okay. So what was it? And then so I went through D&D Beyond and filtered through the monsters, and so I looked at the armor class. So I think there's 100 around. There's like 180, and then some of those are doubles in there. But CR1 monsters listed on D&D Beyond. 80% of them had armor class lower than 16, which is Bugbear's armor class. There was 9% that had 16, and then there was 11% that had higher than that. So in the end, I think it wasn't the dice, it wasn't the CR rating, it was the armor class. And I thought that was really interesting because I don't think you would know or think that, like, just looking at this battle up front, how significant that was.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I also think there's something in specific instances, dice being against you, as opposed
Yeah.
in aggregate, dice being against you. Because over the long run, yeah, dice run fair. That's the whole point. But in those key moments where things can flip, where a grapple doesn't happen that could have been huge, where
Yeah.
something goes a little bit awry, that can completely change how a battle comes through.
Yeah, and that's an excellent counterpoint. And there was certainly, anytime your player goes down, that's hard. Although that was I didn't look at how the monsters are rolling, but with the grapple that we saw that missed, there's a new sleep spell, and so instead of just like doing automatically, somebody goes to sleep or someone chip away, there's a saving throw. The monster saved, and that could have been like a real like encounter changing spell. So you're right. In specific instances, it does matter more than the aggregate. But I thought it was interesting that they really thought, and it did seem like the dice were against them because they kept on missing. But it wasn't just the dice. It was the armor class, I think.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that the armor class as a whole was the bigger challenge in that encounter. Very rarely are dice against you, and I think very often players like to blame the dice because
Sure.
that's what they've got. I have a dice jail too. It's cathartic, know. And I think that's part of D&D just as a culture is blaming your dice when things go wrong.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that we saw about in looking at the adventure from the previous episode was that the party did some things right in trying to get advantage, which is really huge. So the thief really used Vex well. The rogue used Vex well to gain advantage. The sorcerer did use the new sorcerer ability, innate sorcery, that just is like this, sorcerer rage that gives you advantage. They didn't do it initially in the early rounds, and that was, I think, a missed opportunity because advantage is so huge. Like if you can get that, it really significantly increases your chance to hit. One of our previous adventures, we looked at it. Somebody used Fairy Fire with advantage, and it basically accounted for like 1/3 of the damage done in the whole battle. Right? It can be really changing.
Yeah.
So
I think getting advantage is huge, and anything you can do to get it can really swing a battle just because of more shots at your dice rolls help you bring the average up. And so, I think it can be encounter changing.
Yeah. So the more I'm like trying to analyze these battles, that's it. How do I get advantage? Get advantage. And then with this one, I think in particular, I'm not hitting. What should I do? Try something with the saving throw. Maybe that's a change up. Okay, I think that's it. We've talked about our clips. I'm always so impressed. Like when I met you initially, I was impressed with how organized you are. But you really are good at just like analyzing stuff on the fly, and I love that. Thanks so much for being here and on short notice for joining me, Julia. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love hopping on here and looking at D&D.
Okay, well, we'll definitely have you back again. Okay, all right. Thanks, everybody.